Hello and welcome to another episode of the Happy Wife School show. In today's episode, I want to speak to a superpower that good men need to know that they have in their marriages. And just right out of the gate, sharing that superpower is that good men want to know that you have the depth and capacity and commitment and integrity to stay in your marriages, to stay committed to your wife, to stay committed to the vows that you took in spite of your wife's unwillingness to change and unwillingness to take accountability. And not only do you have the capacity to stay, but to do so in a way where you live and can't take responsibility, where you understand your path and you embrace the challenges and dynamics with your wife to grow and learn. To help explain the superpower that you have, we're going to be talking about God's plan for good men in marriage. So this episode is specific for those men who watch my content, that believe in and have a relationship with God and a perspective that will help you to know how to stay in a way where you become stronger in yourself, where you use your marriage to grow and learn instead of feeling beat down and drained of yourself because your values lead you to stay. That there is a path and a perspective that will allow you to stay and do it well and either maintain or rebuild your well-being and mental health in a way where you are not suffering at the hands of your wife's woman ways. What I have learned over the years in working with good men is that you will sacrifice yourselves. You will sacrifice yourselves and your needs for your wife, for your children, and for the vows that you made before God. God created you as a good man to have a short memory so that when the challenges happen, you're able to get back up, keep going, put the past behind you, and not keep a Rolodex of hurt as we do as women. And God created you to have integrity, to be able to follow through with your word, to be able to follow through with your commitments and your vows. Unlike us as women, who He created to keep a Rolodex of hurt and to feel entitled to leave the marriage in pursuit of our own happiness or feelings of being loved. So if a good man believes in God, a good way to stay grounded in your decision to stay in an unhealthy and toxic marriage because of your values is to know that it is God's plan for you to have married your wife, the very wife you have, to have had the children that you have, and to be in the exact marriage that you have. And this perspective that the challenges you're facing with the wife that you have and the marriage you have and the children you have, that the challenges you're facing, if you can see them from the perspective of this is God's plan for you, then it becomes a very powerful perspective that allows you to tap into the superpower of your ability to stay and not just go through the motions of it and feel beat down through it, but actually become stronger in yourself. Knowing that it is God's plan for you to be in the marriage and to stay, it makes it clear that He gave you your wife, your children, and the marriage you have for you to grow and learn. When you understand that this is God's plan for you, and you know that He never gives you anything that you cannot handle, it gives you, as a good man, fresh clarity on God's purpose for you in this life. God doesn't make mistakes. He gives us a multitude of tests and adversities in our lives, but they are not mistakes. They are very purposeful because they are what we need to grow in this lifetime into his likeness of what he intended for us. So God did not make a mistake in having you marry your wife and to be in the marriage that you are in today. Something that's become very clear to me over the years, and my very purpose for what I do, is that I am doing God's work. And many of you have told me in your comments, you've told me in conversations, you've thanked me and reached out just to thank me and acknowledge that I am doing God's work. So I believe what I teach to good men, what I try to teach to women and red pill women, that what I teach is God's providence. It is God's will and direction for women to see themselves as the problem in a marriage with a good man, and for a good man to accept the reality of his wife and who she is as a woman, and to make choices on his path forward. And if he chooses to stay, then to take responsibility for that choice to stay, to make the best of it, and to grow and learn. I believe that God created marriage for us to use marriage and use our spouses to expose our weaknesses, to expose our shortcomings, to expose our limitations in a way that no other relationship in our lives can do. And it's very purposeful. We have to be exposed for our limitations. We have to be exposed for our weaknesses and our shortcomings to be able to grow and learn and become the best version of ourselves that God created us to be. And I believe that's God's purpose for all of us in our lives, no matter the context, no matter the relationships, whether we're married or not, that God's purpose for us is to become who he created us to be in the best version of ourselves. And that is accomplished when we embrace the challenges and losses in life that he put there for us to grow and learn. It's only embracing life outside of our comfort zones that we can grow and learn into who he created us to be. In other words, God doesn't want us to hide and run from the challenges that he gives us, or to resent him for the challenges and adversities that he gives us. He wants us to run into them, embrace them, to navigate the challenges and hardships in them, for us to find our strength and to find our likeness in him. He wants us to embrace them as opportunities, not punishment or suffering, but opportunities. And it's through embracing the adversities as opportunities that we do grow into the best versions of who we are. The reason for that is that the challenges and the adversities push us to know ourselves in a way that an easy and comfortable life can never do. God did not put us into this life to be comfortable and to have it easy. He put us here to find the ways to be pushed to grow and learn. And so marriage is the perfect vehicle that God created to accomplish this purpose for us. And seeing and embracing marriage as that vehicle, and how that looks for women is a little different than how it looks for good men. But it's all the same, and that it pushes us to see the limitations and the weaknesses within ourselves that we can overcome and use his path to become stronger in ourselves. So in that vein, I made a list of 9 challenges that God gives good men in marriage as a fresh challenge for you as a good man to see these common issues that you have in your marriage. Common is a very important word in the issues and challenges that you are having with your wife. While very difficult, while very hurtful and emotionally painful, the issues you have are common, meaning that every good man has to face these 9 things that I will talk about and the issues that you have in your marriage, every good man has to face these on a spectrum, depending on the type of woman you married and where she is on the spectrum of the woman ways I talk about. Common means every good man has to face them on some kind of spectrum. So if all good men have to face these 9 challenges and the same issues in their marriages and relationships with their wives, then that means every marriage for a good man has these issues, which means you didn't get the wrong wife, you didn't get the wrong marriage, you got the exact purpose of what God meant for you in marriage. When you believe or think that your wife in marriage is worse than others, or that you did marry the wrong wife, it lands you smack in the middle of camp victim, feeling bitter, feeling resentful, feeling trapped, feeling alone, feeling there's no way out, which creates a poor me attitude. Why did this happen to me? And will actually create anger and blame toward God. So you can know your wife and your marriage is a part of God's plan for you, or be stuck in camp victim, believing that you got the wrong wife and the wrong marriage. If you embrace and know that your wife and marriage is part of God's plan for you, and that these 9 challenges are what God has placed for you in marriage to overcome the weaknesses in you that your wife exploits, then you will land smack in the middle of camp take responsibility. And understand and embrace that God's plan for you lives in camp take responsibility. So let's get into the 9 challenges that God gives good men in marriage so you can see how to embrace them in a fresh and new way to grow and learn and strengthen yourself so that your wife can no longer exploit you and take your power, and you can remain strong in yourself as a good man and maintain your integrity as a good man. The first challenge that God gives good men in marriage, number 1, is to learn how to survive in the lion's den. So good men are afraid of their wives, understandably, because of the unsafe environment that we create, the emasculation, the gaslighting. It creates a fear. And so good men will accommodate their wives to avoid their wrath. The problem is that when a good man accommodates his wife to avoid her wrath, it exposes his weakness, that he's given his power away to his wife. So to resolve that problem and challenge, you must learn to take back your power. So God has given wives wrath so that as a good man, you can go into the lion's den and face her wrath, knowing that you can survive it, manage it, and use it to rebuild your own strength. The second challenge that God gives good men in marriage, number 2, is to learn to make time to fill your emotional gas tank. It's important to know that your wife wants you to run on empty so that you don't have the emotional strength to stand up to her. So when you do not take the time to do the things you enjoy to fill your emotional gas tank, you are giving her the power of running on empty, so you don't have that strength to navigate and stand up to her in the issues and problems you have. The reason for that is a good men sacrifice yourselves, willing to do whatever it takes to keep things stable with your wife and family, which is emotionally draining and leaves a man running on empty, but still trying to pick up the slack wherever is needed at the expense of yourself. So to embrace God's plan for you in marriage, you want to see that God made your wife and made wives needy and demanding and emotionally unstable to expose your weakness of sacrificing yourself at the expense of your well-being and health, so that you can start doing things to enjoy yourself and fill your gas tank in spite of her disapproval. The third challenge that God gives good men in marriage, number 3, is to overcome your belief that it is your responsibility to make your wife happy. The most important thing to a good man is that he wants to make his wife happy. And not only does he want to make her happy, he believes it's his responsibility. And on top of that, it's also what your wife makes you believe, that it is your responsibility to make her happy. So God made wives unhappy to expose a good man's weakness of wanting stability in the marriage, believing that if your wife is happy, she and your marriage will be stable and happy. But you have to learn that it's not your responsibility to make your wife happy, and seek stability in yourself so you are not giving that power away to your wife to create a sense of stability. The fourth challenge that God gives good men in marriage, number 4, is to learn to have emasculation bounce off of you. Good men are easy prey for women to emasculate you, which is a form of shaming. And good men are easily shamed because you are so willing to admit your faults and to admit your mistakes. So embracing God's plan for you in marriage is to see that God made women and wives to emasculate and shame good men to expose your weaknesses. Shaming pokes at our human weaknesses. And so we need things like emasculation as a window into those weaknesses to become stronger in ourselves. So what that means for a good man in marriage is that your wife shames you to poke at your own weaknesses, and you can learn to embrace the shaming, embrace the emasculation as a window into yourself to become stronger, which you wouldn't be able to see those things in yourself without the shaming and emasculation. The fifth challenge that God gives good men in marriage, number 5, is to learn how to control your emotional response to your wife's provocations. Good men are easily provoked by their wives to elicit uncharacteristic responses of anger and outbursts. So using this as God's plan for good men in marriage, God made women capable of provoking you so you can learn to expose the weakness of your lack of emotional control when provoked. And by embracing that challenge, then you learn to not get sucked into the vortex of your wife's provocation by understanding her intention and disengaging and walking away. The sixth challenge that God gives good men in marriage, number 6, is to learn to not be a victim to a sexless marriage. So good men understandably believe that you need physical intimacy and sex from your wives to feel the expression of her love. So using this as God's plan for you in marriage is understanding that God made women who marry good men, and God made wives to be disinterested in sex, to expose a good man's weakness of needing sex and physical intimacy to feel loved. That good men have to embrace this challenge to learn to fill that neediness within yourself and no longer put yourself last and sacrifice your needs to take back your own life and emotionally fill yourself so you are not dependent on your wife to make you feel loved. The seventh challenge that God gives good men in marriage, number 7, is to learn to be comfortable in the doghouse. Good men tiptoe around their wives, trying not to make their wives upset, distant, and angry. So the result is walking on eggshells. So embracing this as God's plan for marriage is seeing that God made wives emotionally unstable and unpredictable so that good men can see their weakness of accommodating their wives and avoiding conflict with her. Good men need to know that they are always in and out of the doghouse, being called out by their wives for being wrong, which allows you to overcome the weakness by being willing to be in the doghouse and to stop accommodating your wife's moods and fragility. The 8th challenge that God gives good men in marriage, number 8, is to learn to know yourself as a good man in spite of your wife's gaslighting. For good men, the good man is easily beat out of you by your wife. So embracing this as God's plan is seeing that God made wives to always be right. So a good man can see his weakness of his lack of confidence in himself, which allows a good man to rebuild his confidence by understanding the gaslighting from his wife so that he can believe and know he is a good man in spite of her efforts to make him believe otherwise. And the 9th challenge that God gives good men in marriage, number 9, is to take responsibility for your choice to stay in your marriage. That you are constantly blamed by your wife for the problems and challenges and hardships in your marriage, which can cause you to feel trapped, to feel alone, to feel that you are the problem and that there's no way out. So embracing this as God's plan is to see that God made wives to blame their husbands, to expose a good man's weakness of feeling like he got the wrong wife and somehow everyone's marriage is better. And you overcome this feeling by taking responsibility that it is your choice to stay in your marriage and no longer feel trapped. And these are the 9 challenges that God gives men in marriage so that you can tap into your superpower to be able to stay and honor your commitments in your marriage as a value that is important to you by living and can't take responsibility and embracing the challenges with your wife to grow and learn, to become in the likeness of God and the strength that he created you to have and be, that your marriage allows you to find and develop in yourself and also exposes the weaknesses and shortcomings within you that keep you from tapping in to that superpower and using your marriage as God's plan for you to become the man he made you to be. Thank you for taking the time to stop by to learn more about my new community, the University of Marriage for Good Men Only. I've created this community for those of you who have been red-pilled by my content on the Happy Wife School YouTube channel to see the reality of your wife and your marriage. This community is for those of you who have been red-pilled but are seeing the reality that your wife is unlikely to change and take accountability for her behaviors in the relationship. And because of your values, of your faith, and your kids, you are committed to staying, but don't know how to stay and not sacrifice your own happiness and ability to thrive in life. In the University of Marriage for Good Men Only, we are going to teach structured classes each month to give you a workable plan to navigate your marriage and the dynamics with your wife with strength and awareness while maintaining your integrity as a man. You will be in a community with other value-driven, good men who are committed to staying in their marriages but need the support and tools to be able to navigate it without sacrificing their own well-being and mental health in the relationship. So in the community, along with what I said, we'll have structured classes each month. You will see guest appearances from my mentor, David, and my colleague, Josie Warren, the autoimmune expert. We will do a monthly Q&A where you have direct access to me to ask questions on the monthly course or other challenges coming up in your marriage and life. You will also have access to exclusive Happy Wife School content like a bi-monthly live show, my RBA Really Bad Advice series, and we will also have a monthly challenge that goes along with the monthly course so that you can experientially apply what you are learning and see real tangible changes in your marriage and your life. The best part is it's only $99 a month, which is less than taking your wife out to dinner, trying to make her happy. So by joining the community, you are taking a step and retiring from making your wife happy and taking that emotional and financial investment that you've been putting into the empty bucket with holes and putting that into yourself so that you can rebuild yourself as a good man and have the staying power in your marriage in a way where you can still be happy and successful in your life and in your marriage. So I look forward to seeing you in the community very soon.